everybody. I'm Katie Knight and welcome back to my podcast, Can You Put Me on Guest List? Now, today's episode is a really great example of why I started this podcast. The whole idea behind the show was for me to chat with different people from the dance music industry and find out a little bit more about what their job actually consists of, how they got to where they are today, and to share any fun stories that they've made along the way. So today, my guest is Mark Lawrence. And as most of you will already know, Mark has done so much in the industry, including 10 years at PRS and also being the CEO of the Association for Electronic Music. Mark is now the director of Black Rock Publishing, as well as Sentric Electronic, working with some of the most exciting talent in the industry, both upcoming talent as well as established artists. Now, I really didn't know hardly anything about publishing, so I found this chat so interesting, so insightful, and I really did learn so much. So we chat about how publishing actually works, how a publishing deal comes about, and how the last year has affected the world of publishing. Mark was so interesting to talk to. He's so passionate about what he does, and I really hope that you guys enjoy this podcast as much as I did recording it. So if you know of anybody that you think this could be really interesting for, then please remember to share this podcast with them and also subscribe to the show, as each week I upload a new episode. Thank you so much, as always, for listening, and I hope that you enjoy and learn something from this next show with Mark Lawrence. How is everything? Are you okay?
Yeah, we're all right. You know, we're in Mallorca, as you know, so we've been relatively unscathed by all things COVID this year, apart from the initial heavy lockdown, and we're in one of those little mini circuit breakers at the moment. But we've got the blessing of sunshine and a relatively healthy island, so I just kind of look outside and go, thank God for that. But
I know, that's it. That's literally what I say every day. You know what? It could be worse. We could be in the rain. Sorry.
North. Yeah. Every call back to the UK or Germany or beyond is just sort of met with somebody sort of going, and it's awful. I feel so sorry for everybody, because it's like no schools open, nowhere to go, there's snow, there's rain. So I think I do genuinely worry about how people feel this time round. I think the impact of whichever lockdown number they're on, 3 or 4 now, is so much more damaging all round than anything that happened last year, where it was sort of fresh and new and commitments to learn languages and do wonderful things were taking place. And now it's just vodka and iPads. And,
literally, so true. How long have you lived in Mallorca for?
Heading towards 5 years, so that's come around really quick. I kind of realised that it's not a short period of time. It's actually quite significant. So
so lovely over there. I haven't been for a while now, but it's so beautiful.
There was a moment when a couple of weeks ago we were up north on the island on a beach, and it was in the little nook we were in. It was very tranquil with no wind, and it was about 20 degrees, and you looked the other way down the spine of the island, down the mountains, and there's snow on the top of the islands, and then clouds on this side and clear skies on that side, and it was incredible. It was like we're looking at 4 continents in one. It was amazing.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's so lovely. Well, listen, thank you so much for doing this with me and for coming on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure.
I'm really looking forward to chatting with you. And I normally start this show just by talking a little bit about, your beginnings. You've obviously done a lot in the industry. So I wanted to know what your first steps were and how it all began for you. How did you start out in the music industry?
Wonderfully unconventional route. So normally everybody that I kind of meet and work with left school, did some DJing, worked in a label, worked their way up, kind of then went into the next size company and then the next size, and then just kept going. And I completely the opposite unconventional route. So for my sins, I was 16 in 1989. So a lot of my youth was misspent, kind of M25 and dance platforms and basements, and somehow managed to make my way through college and get out the other side, which still surprises me. And went into banking, and I'm not really sure how or why that happened, but just sort of fell into it through a sense of expectation, I guess, and did that for 10 years and just kind of had the epiphany that I was working in a sector where the business didn't have any positive views about the future, its staff, or any real values at all, and music was kind of in my heart. So I jumped ship for PRS, which was an odd moment because I opened the Times on Sunday, I think, and saw an advert, and I knew each individual word, but none of the sentences made sense. It was just all about rights and audio products and this, that. I haven't got a clue, but it sounds like the music industry, so let's go. And I was fortunate enough that Sharon Dean, who was my boss and recruited me, had previously worked at Visa before she went to PRS, so she kind of wanted not another one from the music industry, not another lawyer, and kind of let's take a punt on Mark, which I'm forever thankful for. So I did 10 years at PRS, which I guess would consider itself in the music industry, but now where I am, I kind of realise it's not really at the centre, it's on the side. And however valuable, it's not in the middle of the music industry. So I left there after 10 years and did two things simultaneously. Went to lead the Association for Electronic Music and set up Black Rock Publishing. And then those kind of took their two natural and different courses from there. So I guess I went fan to random to in.
I was just going to say, but you were obviously like a music fan before whilst you were at the bank, for us to say.
I was, yeah. I was still juggling running Abbey National branches in southwest London and Thursday to Sunday partying. So I think I just about got away with that for far too long.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. So right now, obviously, is your main focus Black Rock Publishing?
Yeah, so Black Rock we were independent and kind of it was born along with Steve, Matt from Brighton, Rhythm Masters, and one of the best producers I think in the world at his craft, and it ran alongside Black Rock Records, and then the publishing company really took a life of its own and began working with Sneak and Felix the Housecat and Harry Romero, and it was set itself out to offer everybody that it worked with the same deal, big or small, young or old. And it grew quickly enough for us to need an admin partner, and Sentric, so Chris at Sentric, who'd always been a good friend from my time at PRS, I phoned him and said, look, we need power, have you got it? I said, yeah, no problem, and clicked it together, and we carried on growing, and then in about 2017, Chris came out here to see me and said, let's buy you into Sentric, make you the electronic music division, power up Black Rock as like the concierge part of Sentric, and then create an overall division called Sentric Electronic that allows us to do other things, and that's what we did. So that Chris coming in was a powerful step change in the business. It kind of allowed us to pursue the publishing side. It allows Steve to pursue his production side, and here we are.
Mm-hmm. So what's the actual difference between Black Rock Publishing and Sentric Electronic?
So Sentric Electronic is the division, and it's also the online offering. So you probably don't see so much of the internal bit, which is the electronic music division. You see more of the external, which is Sentric Electronic, which you log into, set up your account, manage everything online. It's a 28-day rolling deal where you keep the rights. Then Black Rock is a much more involved, as we call it, kind of concierge service with lots of client management and creative support. And so that's how it works. That's where the split is. One is light touch online, and one is heavy touch, people all the way.
So for those people that don't actually know what publishing is or how publishing works, can you explain?
It's like the $1 million question, isn't it? And it's taken me 20 years to get there. So how long have you got?
I'm going to be honest, like even when I was preparing for this interview, I was like, I don't fully understand anyway. So this is going to be my question.
The problem is that electronic music rips up a lot of the rules, or at least confuses the rules of what publishing was. So I find the best way to understand publishing and songwriting and artists and recordings is to go back in time to where it first came from and where it first makes sense to kind of for anyone to understand. So if you look at and this is such a crude analogy, and anyone with any expertise will now be steadily getting their pen ready to criticise everything I'm about to say and remind me where I've got it wrong. But in the crudest, simplest terms, if you go back a long way into the 60s, you've got the Beatles. And if we assume that John Lennon and Paul McCartney wrote all of the songs, and the point that they write the songs, they've not been recorded. The Beatles haven't come into the recording studio. Nothing's happened apart from John and Paul noodling about and making a track, or actually a song at that point. Let's get that technically correct. And it doesn't exist apart from being a song. And songs can be recorded by anybody. They can be covered by anybody. They have their own rights, and publishers look after them. Music publishers look after them. So the point a song is finished, it's therefore a copyright. And there are rights established against that copyright that have money next to them. So John Lennon and Paul McCartney write a song, give it to their publisher then represents it, and it sits there in the vaults of that publisher until something happens to it. And what happens in the case of Lennon and McCartney is they actually take it next door, and two other people come in the room and the Beatles record it, and it then exists as a recording made by artists which can get put on a label and sold and listened to. So in every recording is this song, this mythical thing called a song, which in the old days was made first.
Yeah.
But of course now in electronic music, it's a few people, often one person sat at a laptop doing all of it at the same time, which is why it completely confuses the model, because anybody that is a producer is a songwriter at the same time, and so they need a publishing deal and a label deal. So why that's really important, because I know it's techie, is that a song earns money by being performed in public or being copied. And that's where the money comes from. So when a song, which sits inside one of those recordings that someone made, be it the original artist or a cover, is copied for CD or copied for vinyl or in a download or in a stream, there's a mechanical royalty that's generated, the mythical mechanical royalty.
Yeah.
And it's a publisher's job to make sure that all of those royalties come back to the person who wrote the song or people that wrote the song. If you can hear the song, then there's a performing royalty. So that's on TV, on radio, in a gig, in a club, part of a stream. So the kind of, if it's audible, then the performing royalty, the performance of that song is taking place, and that's where those royalties come from. So, we collect direct in 120 different territories around the world, and there are probably about 246 different sources of revenue just for a song. Whereas a record label is much simpler because it's dealing with this recording, which is the thing you and I hear and assume is the everything, right? When you press play, you're listening to the recording. The song is nestling underneath it, and that recording is basically played on radio, sold, streamed. There's on TV. It's a lot simpler in terms of where the money comes from, and then that all goes back to the label, and it all goes to the recording artist. So it's a slightly simpler world than this incredibly complicated world of rights management and mechanical rights and performing rights. So that's about as simple as I can make it. I could try and make it simpler, but I'd be into such stern analogy hell that we'd be here for the rest of the call, I suspect.
Sorry, how many places did you say that you have to, that's 126?
We're in 120 territories that we collect direct, yeah. So because you've got all of the different TV stations and all the different radio stations and all the different venues in all the different parts of the world and all the different ways to collect it. And then you've got these big global routes of YouTube and Apple and Spotify, the kind of behemoths of global sales and streams that you have to collect in different ways with trillions of lines of data. So it's a beast to stay on top of rights now. Yeah. That's plays in the high street. All those things. Every time you hear music, essentially, there's an opportunity to license and collect a royalty through a performing right organisation that's in that country or direct. So there's lots of places.
How would you know if a track or a song has been played in like a shop, like Top Shop, for example? How do you know?
I guess there's a lot of trust and a lot of policing in the industry. So if you take a retail environment such as a chain of shops or a single shop, then they will normally purchase or license music from some kind of supplier of music to retail shops, and they'll say, right, here's this month's CDs, often it's still CDs, or here's this month's downloads, would you like to use any of this selection? And then it's actually the shop has to pay a license fee to be able to have music played, and the data of what's in this month's playlist comes from that company that provided the music, and they report it to a local PRO, and then it's all matched up and sent to us. Wow. And then people will drop in and go, have you got a license? Well, you seem to be playing music. And that's where the kind of the music police tag used to come in, which is people being tapped up for their PRS license.
Ah, wow. Well, I didn't know any of that, so I'm just... There we go.
Mark's monthly teaching.
Do you always have to give the same answer when somebody asks?
No. There's always a fabulously. I know I'm trying not to bore everybody within earshot of trotting out the same metaphors, to be honest, and the same stories. But it is mind-boggling because every country's got different rules, and every route is different, and it's a full-time job in the company just staying on top of policies and laws and what changes and what deals have been done, and different publishers operate different ways. It's hugely complex and possibly unnecessarily complex versus the simplicity of just pressing play. But it was designed for a different world of wax cylinders and orchestras and sheet music, and everyone's been trying to translate it into digital ever since.
Wow. So obviously things are so much more complicated than they probably used to be, as you were saying, like back in the 60s. But how have things changed over the last year with COVID? Has it affected it a lot with, obviously a lot more streaming and not really no events happening? How has that been?
There's loads of different things that have changed, and some things haven't changed at all. So one of the other types of rights, without getting too rabbit hole about it, is neighbouring rights, which is if you can hear the recording in public, and it comes from a lot less sources. It comes from live radio, a bit of TV, and from the high street. So anytime the high street is shut, and if gigs are shut and the live sector is shut, then that revenue falls pretty quickly, because that's literally the only places it goes. So neighbouring rights is a revenue stream that will be hit much harder than performing and mechanical rights, because they go back in terms of collections up to 6 years. So it's like seeing Starlight. The thing that you see is actually a lot older. So the statement that you get as a writer or an artist or producer often contains royalties that go years back, because all the different parts of the world are all paying at different times. So you've got this natural insulation that in the year where you're in lockdown and the live sector is closed, publishing royalties are flowing from the year before and the year before and the year before. So the more efficient we get, the more we've been able to sort of keep that away. And any dips that we've had in high street and live, we've been able to make up for with more direct collections from different parts of the world. So we did a direct deal with Beatport as the only publisher that licenses them at the tail end of last year, which means that we're collecting directly from the store. And that's lifted like-for-like royalties about 4 times. So if you were previously getting £100 in your Beatport distribution, you would now be getting 400 for your publishing royalties. So we've been making every effort to kind of keep away the impact of COVID with the people that we represent through efficiency and deal making and just being as accurate as we can be. But what has definitely changed, in answer to your question, this year has been how producers have made music. I think most people would recognise that up until then there was just an ever-present kind of hamster wheel effect of must release every 2 or 4 weeks, must be on those labels, because if I'm not releasing them, not visible and not on those labels, then I'm not going to get the gig, or I'm not going to get the feel I want. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm not busy, then I'm not a success. And if I'm not gigging, then people will stop inviting me and booking me. And I think to a greater or lesser extent, that was sort of homogenizing music around the Beatport genres a little bit. And we were sort of seeing these sort of main pillars of genres. And that's where everyone was naturally falling into to rise up those charts. Mm-hmm. What we've seen in 2020 is producers leaning back a little bit and taking a lot longer to finish tracks and letting them breathe, and Matador making an album with songs and with breaks in, and Mark Knight going, actually, no, I want to make real songs and positive songs and happy songs. And so lots of different producers are doing lots of different things. There's lots of albums that have been made. There's lots of crossover music or breakbeat, or just everyone going back a little bit to making the music that's in them rather than what needs to go on to X, Y, or Z label, because there's no dance floor audience, which is obviously a crying shame, but you're making it for a different audience. You're making music for Spotify, radio, cars, gyms, walks, whatever's open and wherever people can be. So and our creative team, the work that Chino's been doing in creative has gone through the roof. We're up to, I think, 108 active collaborations now between singer-songwriters and producers.
Wow. And do you think then that this will be something that will stick now? Do you think that producers will take their time in making music, or do you think once things normalize, whenever they do you think it will kind of go back into what it was before?
I think there's two or three forces at play at the same time. So from a dance floor perspective, I think the dance floor is going to take its time if it ever goes fully back, but it's going to be small dance floors or open air dance floors or table-based dance floors or COVID-safe dance floors first. Blue Marlin before Amnesia, kind of step by step. So the music will fit the environment, and so naturally you're probably going to have more of a legacy of the creativity of lockdown being played out before you go back to what was pre-lockdown in terms of dark brooding techno and tech house, etc. So I think naturally you're going to have a lot lighter, varied music initially. But what you've also got is advertisers and brands and films and TV have been increasingly using electronic music in what we call sync, where you synchronize the music to the visuals. And so I call it the meerkat effect. Because of who I am and what I used to listen to when I was 16 to 20, I'm right bang in the middle of what advertisers want to advertise to. So I'll be listening to the radio or TV and a house track will come on from an advert and I'm like a meerkat. Oh, that must be because I'm literally the epicenter of their buying target. So you've got a lot of dance music being used in unfamiliar places now, in car adverts and burger adverts and food delivery companies. And so that's going to continue the use creatively of more accessible electronic music, I think, for a good 5 years until we're no longer the people that companies want to sell to. And and I've kind of got my walking stick out. So those are like the competing forces, right? There's the return of the dance floor, and there's the buying public and the pound, euro, and dollar that they're after. So,
what makes you want to work with an artist? What are the qualities that really get your attention?
We're a very fortunate business because we work with a lot of third parties like Beatport, where they will refer opportunities to us, and Electric Ibiza work with us, and we have some amazing partners like with Neil and everybody else there, and so we have a lot of business that's referred to us, and a lot of existing clients will recommend us. And so our kind of, we don't sell per se, but what I will do and what we do within the team is we will seek out emerging talent as early as we can when we see something amazing happen. So my Thursday night is normally taken up listening to all the new music for that week. And within that, I will find collaborators or singers and songwriters and top liners, or we'll go through the new releases on labels that we work with because we're mobily publishing and toolroom publishing. And so we've got a lot of partners. So I'll be introduced to a lot of music from a lot of different sources. Mm-hmm. And in that, there'll naturally be a discovery process. And I guess the discovery process for me when I'm finding new talent is it brilliant? Not is it, top of Beatport. Yeah. It's is it brilliant? And that brilliance could be described in so many different ways. Is it something I can imagine us working for Sync? Can I imagine where they could be in 5 years' time? Have they got something so unique that I'm going to take a bet on them? But also they need to be, I think artists need to be, from an A&R perspective on publishing certainly, I think, how to describe it? I guess themselves and certain of who they are and authentic. Yeah. And with integrity as creators, because we're looking at things from a publishing perspective. So I might find a voice, for instance, on the singer-songwriter side, on a track that's relatively unsuccessful that comes across this, I can just imagine who they can work with. Let's bring them in. Let's put them on a short-term contract so both sides can try before they buy, and then match them up on one of our online writer camps with a set of producers and see what happens next, and allow those crazy unintended consequences to happen.
Wow.
And in some cases, when we bring in singer-songwriter talent like that to work with producers, a track can get finished, come in and go straight back out for a sync brief before it's even gone near a record label, because the creative process is finding its feet before a label can get involved. So it can be hugely rewarding when you match make two people that never met before, and the outcome is some kind of fusion,
absolutely,
hip hop techno track, which was, I think, the last one was, which we then pitched straight out for an advert.
Oh wow! Can you talk about any of like the projects that you're working on at the moment, or any artists or anything?
That's all incredibly secret.
Okay.
No, not at all. Like, so we I think one of the projects I'm finding most rewarding is working with Matador and his album project, because we've worked together and known each other for a long time, and I think Gavin is seen and has a particular role within a kind of melodic house and techno world, and has come through from the kind of the Minus team and working with Rich into an artist in his own right, with a brand in his own right, but an incredibly accomplished producer, but hasn't really ever turned himself to song-based releases. It's always been, the track or EP every couple of months. And with all of the time that he's had and being based with Nick in Ireland, he's been able to, have the long walks and stare out at the sea and spend time with Dog and just be motivated in a different way. And seeing him move from hooks on a track, vocal hooks on a track, to full songs and working with songwriters, and then seeing what that inspires him to do next. That's, on a creative side, that's kind of real publishing, because you're immersing yourself in the emotion of the project and what it's trying to do without sounding too pretentious. But at the same time, then we've got writer camps that take place where a producer comes in with 5 or 6 sketches and works with, this is all online, we'll work with maybe 8 or 10 of our singer-songwriter talent, and then some of those people have never worked in that environment before. A lot of electronic music producers are used to working with samples, cleared or otherwise, or to go to a sample pack. And now songwriters are available to them writing full songs. And so I think all of those have been some of the most enjoyable moments of the last 12 months, which is just unleashing creativity when people most need that, rather than just sort of chasing the chart position.
Absolutely. You said before that Thursdays is your day where you listen to new music. I'm sure Thursday nights are real fun in your house.
Bottle of wine and Spotify.
Yeah. Is there any artists that you have discovered lately that you're really enjoying?
There are, but they're probably not necessarily the ones that everybody's going to go, oh, wow, yeah, I know them. But there are definitely people that we pick up along the way, and I go there for, like, DJ Counselling. He's been around a while. Really interesting. I'm always, Raxon, who's also been around a while, is a favourite in terms of what he produces. I've just been kind of rediscovering Dateless recently, who are very good. So there's a whole blend. I'm finding Molly Collins and K Motions and Sammy Vergi, who are more on the kind of drum and bass side, really interesting. So there's lots, and also more kind of interesting down tempo, like Glue 70 is worth discovering, and Zula. So there's lots. It's really hard for me to pigeonhole, because every day is like a different flavour for me. So I've deliberately set up playlists on different genres that I'll share throughout the week of people we work with. So it's not just, so Wednesday's drum and bass day, and Sunday's slow down, and Saturday's song bass, just so that we can kind of spread the love around. But, and I've got definitely some mainstays of my personal taste in the gang. So Rodriguez Jr. is probably, at the end of every year when Spotify tells me who I love, it always tells me Rodriguez Jr. is who I've loved the most. I'm like, yep, again, absolutely, well done. So that's, Yeah.
You also mentioned that sometimes you could even be listening to a track and might not be a very good track, but then you think that the vocals on this track are amazing. I could be used for something else. For example, if you heard, an amazing vocalist, say on a drum and bass track, could you use that vocalist and then take her to another genre, or do you always kind of keep the vocalist in the same genre that they're in?
We like to work with everyone on the basis of what they want, and then maybe tease them a little bit into or out of their comfort zone. So, and often you'll find that a lot of singer-songwriters prefer to mix it up and not be pigeonholed too much. Because a lot of the time the song started first before the track came along. Because most singer-songwriters will spend their day being inspired by events around them and writing as if it was poetry, and then find a home for what that was and then change it accordingly. So, I've recently reached out to a featured artist on one of Seb Zito's tracks, just "Hi, I love your vocal performance. It was really interesting. It was really different." And turns out what she really wanted to do, not what she really wanted to do, she wanted to work on that track, but what she wants to do moving forward is to work on some drum and bass tracks. And it's like, well, that's great. We've got a drum and bass writer camp in 2 weeks. Let's go. So you tend to find that we're really enabling and connecting people to achieve what they wanted in the first place, rather than finding that we've got to force people too far away from that.
What are your writer camps?
They're a bit, obviously they're a bit different to the old way of doing things, where you would have maybe 2 days in one studio with a number of producers and a number of singer-songwriters and some musicians, and kind of a whip being politely cracked to make sure you finish some tracks by the end. And what we do is a much longer process where we put a publisher in the centre, and then attach writers around them to then come to an epicenter day where everything is reviewed together. And that's been really interesting, because it's putting one producer in the center of a process, so that at the end they get to work with as many singer-songwriters as they want and really mold it together. And because it's not focused into a couple of days, it's more of a kind of a development program. Then tracks might get pulled away from the project, or songs that were submitted have a new track written for them, or two songwriters will get together and go away and work together after they've heard each other's contributions. So it becomes a lot longer term. And it also allows introverted writers to get more of a centre stage, because in a live environment, extroverts can be quite dominant in the creative process, and introverts might sit in a corner. And if you give everyone time and space to do it their way, then they contribute more. So it's been really interesting to watch very different personalities contribute equally as songwriters by giving everyone more time.
Yeah. What are the best ways for an artist to secure a publishing deal?
I think it's very different now than it used to be, with the advent of services like Sentric and Sentric Electronic, where anyone can go online, set up an account in minutes, register their songs almost as quickly, and then those songs are shot off to 120 territories to start collecting from all sorts of sources. So in a sense, anyone can get a publishing deal now, in the same way that almost anyone can set up a record label now. It's never been easier to set up a record label or get a publishing deal. It's just never been harder to make money out of them. So I think I guess it's defined publishing deal. We've got everything from 28 days, manage yourself online, through to exclusive songwriting agreements, more traditional publishing with an advance and a term, and full client management and creative services, which is much more traditional. And I think, to get that kind of deal, you obviously have to have a degree of gravitas and critical, musical and commercial success already under your belt, because the publisher at that point is taking a financial risk in backing you for royalties you're going to earn in the future. But we map a type of deal for everybody, everything from start now 28 days all the way through to sort of 12-month creative deal, through to a full-on advance and full service deal.
So is it always you that goes out and finds the artist or the talent that you want to work with, or can it work the other way around as well, where talent's just coming up at your door?
Yeah, it comes to us. I would say, about the screen, I would say 90, I don't know, I don't want to put a figure on it, because it's quite a it's quite a fluid process because people tend to refer across to me. I will quite often be talking to someone and say, oh, you must talk to someone else, or I'll say, do you know them? And so there's a lot of fluidity around publishing. But I think how we're set up now is that thankfully it's not all me. And so we have a lot of A&Ring through the wider Sentric Electronic team that are looking at young and emerging talent, and also older and successful talent that may be unpublished. The great thing about electronic music is there's so much publishing available that this isn't about nicking off people's toes and nicking off people's current books. This is about finding emerging talent that's not currently published. So I would say 90% probably comes to us through third parties and referrals and existing writers. And then there's probably the remainder where we'll hear, see, or find someone and go, I want to work with you. But honestly, I tend to find if you go out cold to sell to someone, that's much harder than it is to have someone kind of come in warm, as it were. And I'd much prefer to have positive referrals in than spend my time kind of cold selling out.
Yeah, of course. No, especially if it comes from somebody that you often work with, it always kind of makes more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
What advice would you give aspiring artists?
I'm not sure if I ever review this answer. I'm not sure if it's ever necessarily right. I'm not sure I've ever even been challenged on it. But I think it's probably rules for life, not just aspiring artists. Because I think, stay true, be yourself, have a plan, but also build a great team around you. And I don't mean at that stage necessarily a great team that you pay for. It could be a team of friends, family, peer artists or writers. Find people in the industry you can trust and bounce off them. In the same way that a producer, an artist is going to send music out for feedback. Go, what do you think of this? And get some opinion. I think your career is the same. Find a mentor, find a confidant. If you think it's embarrassing to ask for advice, it's probably even more embarrassing to realise you've signed your life away to a terrible contract that you can't get out of. So I think I'd rather feel sheepish asking for help than feel sheepish admitting the mistake that I made years later and how much it might have cost me. So that's certainly how I think, is artistically be yourself and commercially seek support.
That was a really great answer. What have been some of your favourite jobs or projects that you've worked on in your career so far? If you could choose like 2 or 3.
I mean, definitely, I guess reversing backwards in time, the current creative push we've got is hugely satisfying because it means that we're always listening to amazing new music. And a lot of it you just can't see coming because it's not following traditional paths. So for every hard day of administration and negotiation, to have a SoundCloud link dropped into your inbox at the end of the day going, listen to this. And you're like, we made this, but we enabled this. Look at what so-and-so and so-and-so have done today. It makes everything worth it.
Sorry, I was just going to say, it must be such a great feeling, because I was thinking this as you were saying it before as well, about when you put 2 people together and this amazing track comes out of it. It must be like just the best feeling ever once you've heard like the final product.
I think so, because it's very easy in anything to do with rights and data and numbers to let that take over and for that to be what it is, and to forget that what you're doing is for human beings that want to create amazing music that inspires people to dance or to change their lives or to smile or to whatever they want to do. It's supposed to make something happen next. Yeah. So when you hear something that's come out from such a true kind of state of a collaboration, and it is inspiring, and it does, as I say, it's rewarding. It's not just numbers then and targets. So that's how I feel. That's what the transformation of the last 12 months, which we were aiming to do, but in a way has been COVID accelerated. The benefit for us has been this sort of huge creative push through the time everyone's got. And then I guess the coming of age of Black Rock when it became part of Sentric was a huge moment for me. It was a validation of the business, and it gave us a sort of strong footing and confidence to push on. And I think on a very human level, an AFEM related activity really, which is when I was heading it up the early campaign that we led on was a lot of the work we did on drug policy globally. So we did a panel with B Traits at IMS, which was quite a poignant one because, as you know from IMS, the panels are recorded live and tweeted live and reported live. So you're as a moderator, you're always watching this activity happening. And I remember as we were doing this panel, and I kind of quoted, "We're not pro-drugs, we're anti-death." And it just went, you could watch it retweeting real time across all the monitors, and you go, wow, we just triggered something, because we were talking about, the need for drug education and the need for testing, and lots of people have been very delicate about it. And then that led us into a whole journey of working with organizations in the US, because in the US at that time, we were right in the peak of the mega festivals in North America, which meant we were also right in the peak of drug deaths in North America. And sadly and terribly, quite a lot of young teenagers and young 20s losing their lives, because in America, the promoters can't give out information on safe consumption of drugs or on what to do if you see someone in trouble, because of the RAVE Act, which is basically, if you are seen to be handing out information, then you are endorsing drug use, which means that you are therefore, as a promoter, promoting the use of drugs, and they be taken to court and put into prison. So the whole system is stacked against safety and stacked in favour of a bad outcome. And so we were introduced, and I made friends with mothers who'd lost their children, and we all agreed that we would take the show to Vegas, as it were, and go to EDMBs in Vegas, and as best we could recreate the panel that we'd put on in IMS, but in Vegas, knowing that we were in the heartland of where this was the most difficult message to get across. And we had to do it with not scripted, but structured carefully, so that every message was right and didn't put people's businesses in the scrutiny of the police and lawmakers. And I think at one point, the shedding of tears live as people described the loss of their sons and daughters and what could have been different for that was a huge show. And you were looking down at like the front row, and it was so incredibly traumatic and emotional. Nothing like the trauma and emotion, obviously, of the loss of children. But it was such a transformational moment, I think, in the scene there, because people realised that the law was not doing what it was intended to do. It was creating the opposite. It was creating death. It was creating harm. It wasn't reducing harm, and therefore things needed to change. And then what we saw was slow and steady change, and we saw more police acknowledging and more states acknowledging that education was better than prohibition, and that allowing some kind of drug testing, even if was better than none, and allowing leaflets to be handed out was better than none, and having water stations was better than none, and that was it. And thankfully things became more normal and more healthy. And but yeah, that was, so I think I'm very proud of that one.
Of course. That's amazing. So over there now, is drug testing allowed now over in the States?
It's state by state. So you've got festivals like Shambhala in Canada, where it's completely open. You go and test. It's like a role model in many ways, and much like some of the festivals in the UK are, and indeed Spain for that matter. But no, it's not widespread. And I guess at the same time, or not long afterwards, the kind of the mega festival environment changed a bit anyway. There were a lot of festivals, and there were a lot of similar lineups, so the economics and the profile of the events changed. But little things started to change, like the move them to the autumn, not the summer, so it's not as hot in the first place. I think we started to see festivals get smaller. We started to see a change in the approach to the states that were holding them, because it was better not to have, to be blunt, fleets of ambulances leaving events. It was better for them to go unscathed. So the law hasn't significantly changed. I think there's been enough impact on the RAVE Act now to have softened the blow and to make things easier. Be careful with how I describe it. I'm not quite sure I can interpret easier. But yeah, that landscape has positively changed, but it's not positively changed enough compared to the approach in Europe, particularly in countries like Holland, where the aim of the game is for everybody to be safe and educated.
Yeah, absolutely. I've also seen that you are, I don't really know much about this project, so that's why I wanted to ask you. You're also an advisory board member of In a Place of War.
Yeah.
So can you, I was looking at their Facebook page last night, so I would like you to explain a little bit more about the project and how you got involved and what kind of work you do with them.
Yeah, it's early days, and it was sadly curtailed by COVID because a lot of it requires on being in the UK to meet with the organisation and to sort of help guide and direct. But as an advisor, my role is really to sort of be consulted upon to give guidance on initiatives and ideas. So that the main aim of the organisation is to reduce and remove and soften the blow of the impact of war, conflict and turmoil, particularly on children in places of war. And war could be, gang-related warfare, not just your stereotypical army beats up other army. So there is a broad definition of war into sort of wider conflict. And that could be through using music as a tool to teach children so they have a skill to escape from a war-torn environment. It could be from the donation of instruments to schools. It can be through fundraising festivals. And so it operates widely around the world, from Palestine to Africa to South America to Mexico and beyond. And it's, frustratingly, I guess, for the organisation, a lot of its fundraising activity comes from donations and percentages of live events. And of course, with no live events, then it's a lot harder to raise money. So we connected AFEM and In Place of War and Beatport at one point last year during lockdown to sort of mutually assist each other in fundraising. But it's a fabulously powerful set of initiatives and ambition, which is to use music in many of the ways it's supposed to sort of inspire, to remove anxiety and to be a positive way out of very negative situations.
I'll leave all of the information. If maybe you could send me like a bit more info so I can leave it in the description for anybody that would like to, help out or get involved in any way.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, that's very, really, really interesting. I worked with Bridges for Music for a while.
Yeah.
I think you know of Bridges for Music as well.
Of course.
And I actually had the opportunity to go to Langa in South Africa, which is the township where Bridges for Music were building the music school. And it's a great example of, how music can really bring people together, build bridges and get people out of very complicated and negative situations. So for anybody that is listening, if you ever do have a chance to, get involved with any types of projects like these ones, then I really, really push you to do so. There are so many small things that you can do that can go such a long way.
I think I couldn't agree with you more. When you even if you just at a very high level just click on a website and watch a video, because we get so cocooned in our reality and what our dangers and difficulties are, and then you kind of walk a virtual yard in somebody's shoes in a much more difficult environment than we live in, where water doesn't flow and bullets rain and bombs drop, and then you kind of go, okay, maybe I'll deal with my 15 days in lockdown in Majorca because that's not my normal. But it's easy not to know. Don't feel guilty about not knowing, but make sure that you educate yourself into what the extremes are. When you look at countries like Yemen and you look at the results of war in a country like Yemen, don't turn away from a 2-minute YouTube video. Watch it and do something. Yeah. Don't do nothing. Doing nothing is the worst thing. And not looking, because what you'll see is even worse than that, to be blunt.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Just to finish off, would you do a round of quickfire questions?
As you've noticed, it's quite hard for me to do quickfire and short. So if I can, I will. Yeah.
You can take as long as you want at the answer. They're quick ones. So, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
A toast, one with Marmite, one with marmalade.
One with Marmite, one with marmalade.
Yeah. Bitter and sweet.
That's quite a random mixture.
Yeah.
A podcast series or book that you're enjoying at the moment?
God, that is hard actually, because I'm not. I am trying to get into books this year, but I must confess I haven't opened the first one that I plan to, although Roman from CAA has recommended one to me, which is about one of the early owners of a major label in the US, so that's going to be the first one that I'm going to open this year. But I can't painfully, it's all about music, it's not about books and podcasts yet this year.
Do you know, I also, at the beginning of the year, I was like, I'm going to set myself a goal and try and read a book a month. And it got to the 28th of February and I was like, I still have half of my book left. So I sat down for 5 hours on Sunday, like determined to finish this book just because it was my goal, which I'm glad I did. And I did finish it. So
I do have a Spanish grammar book that I'm making my way through, but I'm not going to get dragged into that yet.
You can invite 3 people over for dinner, dead or alive. Who do you choose?
Oh, that is fantastic, isn't it? Let me have a think. Prince, Gandhi, and who's my third one going to be? I've got to think of something incredibly funny. And Stephen Fry.
Stephen Fry. I was going to say you can invite me round because that sounds like a great one already.
Prince, Gandhi and Stephen Fry. There you go. That should be interesting.
What would you cook?
Chickpea curry, for sure. Straight in. Homemade chickpea curry, medium spiced.
Delicious. This is a very difficult question, your favourite event to attend? It can be any type of event.
From a music industry, I'll have to break this in two, I guess. I think from a music industry perspective, and not just because of our mutual friend, Mr. Turner, but IMS has always been the number one on the team sheet in the calendar every year. And I think we all missed that and can't wait for that to come back. There's something about the timing of it and the location of it and how it operates that I think we will have an affinity for and love for if we're there. And then I think the only other event, really, it makes me sound like a soppy git, but I would love to always be able to revisit the birth of my kids, because that's something you'll never ever get to attend again. Aww. And I wish I'd been able to kind of record those more beautifully in my mind when they happened.
Oh, that's such a lovely answer. What's your favourite sandwich filling?
How have we gone from that to sandwich filling? That's quite remarkable. Isn't that beautiful? Sandwich fillings. I'm going to go for chili jam and brie, which I don't really get to eat anymore because I'm predominantly vegan, with the odd exception when I'm eating out. So I'm I'm actually talking about something that I don't eat, but that's,
but you wish you could.
Yeah.
What would a perfect day look like for you?
Not getting up too early. Mm-hmm. And then I think a perfect day would be easing into the day, spending it with family in the outdoors, in the sunshine, and then having a perfect meal at the end to the sunset. That's it. Nothing big, nothing fancy.
That would be mine too.
Yeah. What
is the app that you use the most besides the usual WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram?
Have a look. That's a wonderful question. I think that's probably it. Let me have a look. Whoa. Yeah, apart from the news and the weather and banking. Nothing fun. Probably just BBC News to stay more or less subjectively informed. That's it. Yeah.
Your favourite city to visit?
I think that changes a bit from time to time, and new ones appear and leave again. And so I'm probably going to have to put 2 or 3 up at the same time, especially because now that we live in Mallorca, then some of those that were previously not favourites to visit become favourites to visit. So it's probably a combo vying for attention of London, Barcelona and Berlin.
Good choice. And my final question, which I ask everybody on the podcast, because the podcast is called Can You Put Me on Guest List? I'm not going to ask you for guest list because there's nowhere to go, but Do you have a guest list rule?
I do, which is I'm not going to put people on the guest list unless I'm there. And so that's my rule, is if you hit me up and it's to something I'm not going to, then I won't do it. I have to be there. You have to be with me. Otherwise it's, no, there can be bad outcomes that you don't want to have to deal with if you're not there.
That's a great one. Nobody's actually ever answered that before, so that's a really good rule. I like that one. Mark, listen, thank you so much. This has been so interesting. The whole point of me starting this podcast when I started it was to learn more about what other people do in the industry, and this has just been absolutely perfect. I've learned so much, and it's also really great to have a good chat with you as well. I know we've crossed paths many of times, but we haven't really ever had like an in-depth conversation. So this has been really lovely, and thank you so much for everything.
Well, thank you for having me, and sorry if at times I went into the rights management rabbit hole, but hopefully I kept it relatively normal.
It was absolutely perfect. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.